150%. In this webinar, Cerkl Founder Tarek Kamil will be sharing these upgrades and best practices with you live. Before we begin, I want to go over a couple housekeeping items with you. First, if you have any questions, go ahead and enter them in the chat box on the left side of your screen. We want this to be as interactive as possible, so don't be shy. So you might be thinking, I wish my colleagues could have seen this. Well, don't worry, we have it recording, so we will send that to you in our follow-up email. This isn't your typical webinar. So if you know any of us on the Cerkl team, we don't do things typically. So we are going to be live screen sharing everything with you today. Tarek's going to take you through all the steps and show you how to work your Cerkl. If you have any technical difficulties, please call the number on your screen and we will have our tech support connect with you immediately. And keep the conversation going. Our team members will be live tweeting for you today. So this is our team, and you might be wondering who I am. I'm the third one from the left. My name's Maddie, and I'm an engagement specialist at Cerkl. And I'm so excited to be here with you guys and to introduce to you our founder and CEO, Tarek. Hi, Tarek.
Hi, Maddie. How are you?
I'm great. I'm doing really well. So, of course, we're excited to have you all here and share some new upgrades with you. And here's what we're going to be going over today. First, we're going to go over some topics in onboarding. Then we're going to jump to content sources and how those can help you really beef up your content and being able to share all of these awesome features with your audience. Then we'll be going over audience segmentation, link sharing, and analytics. Finally, as a bonus feature, we'll be going over email campaigns, and it's one of our newest features that everyone's really been anticipating. Lastly, we'll go over live Q&A. So, as a special offer for all of you, we have launched a referral program. We want to reward all of you that have been with us by our side and as we've continued to grow. By referring other organizations, companies, or groups, you will receive $300 for your own organization, courtesy of Cerkl. So now I'm going to turn everything over to Tarek so we can jump right in.
Thanks, Maddie. This is your first webinar?
Yes, can you tell?
No, it's fine. You did great. Okay, so let's jump in. So I'm just going to start going through the features that Maddie listed. And as she said, if you have any questions as we're going through this, this is really an opportunity for you to ask us anything you want to ask us. So don't be shy. If something doesn't make sense, don't hesitate. It's totally fine. That's what this is for. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about is this concept of topics and how that impacts new subscribers and them self-selecting their interest. So let me show you how you would get there. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. I'm logged in as myself into our own Cerkl. So if I go down into settings, and you'll see on the left-hand side, there's a bunch of different options. This is where you would customize your Cerkl. And the feature that we're going to talk about right now is this concept of topics. So these are the topics that we have selected for our own Cerkl. You can put in anything that you would like. And what will happen is when someone subscribes to your Cerkl, they will then be prompted, are you interested in any of these things? Of course, they can pick other things, but these are really guidelines that you are establishing to help guide the conversation. And when we get into the conversation about analytics, you'll see how this plays a role. So this helps us matchmake your content with the people that want to see it. So real quick, I actually am jump ahead. I know we're going to talk about analytics later, but I want to show you how these work together. So if I look at our own analytics and I jump into our content, you will see how many people have opted in to each of our topics. These are why your topics become important. And it also is telling me that the second most popular topic is technology, which isn't one that we have picked. So it would make sense for us to add that to our Cerkl. I'll just go ahead and do that now. So now when someone is subscribing, technology will be another option that they can pick from. So hopefully that makes sense. And let me see if I can show you an example of how this actually plays out. So if I jump into my inbox, this is what our subscribers receive. So if I go through here and I receive this email, I've just subscribed to Cerkl, take 60 seconds to personalize your experience. So there's technology which we just added as a topic. So this is someone new, they're subscribing to our newsletter. So I can go in and pick what I want. So let's say I'm interested in community engagement, digital marketing, personalization, all the new features. What are best practices when it comes to personalization and engagement? And hey, technology, perfect. And then the default, you can set this, but they can go in and override it. How frequently do they want to hear from you? So we have set the default to weekly. So if someone doesn't make any changes, they will hear from us weekly, Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. But I can go in and change that and say actually every 2 weeks, and I like to check my emails Saturday morning. And then what format? So again, you are picking the default. So I can go in and change that if I want to just receive the headlines. That's easy enough for me to do. Or I want a traditional newsletter, perfect. Or something in the middle. So there, I'm done. I'm now subscribed to Cerkl. I've seen the topics. I've self-selected in terms of what I want. And I can choose to share that I'm subscribed to Cerkl on Facebook. So the other thing that then they can do is go in and see what stories has Cerkl already published. So we drop them right here so they can see what kind of content that we're creating. And all of this just points back to, for a lot of you, it will point back to your own websites, blogs, YouTube channels, and that's fine. Some of you are using Cerkl as your CMS, and in that case, it will just point back to Cerkl. So this is a story that was posted through Cerkl. So here we are, we're still at Cerkl. And here is a story that is posted on a different website. So when they click on that, they're just taken to that story. So that in a nutshell is how topics work. And again, they're really just designed as a jumpstart for your audience so we can start learning about them out of the gate. People always ask, is it required for them to do that process? What happens if they don't? And the answer is it doesn't really matter. So it would be no different than you going to Netflix and just start watching shows. Based on the shows that you watch, Cerkl will learn about your interests. Does it help Netflix if in the beginning you tell them I'm into comedies and horror movies? Yes, of course it will help them make recommendations for you. So it's the same thing with us. It's not required, but it doesn't hurt either.
So Tarek, we have a question. Someone's asking, what do your stats show is the most effective format?
Really depends. And actually with the new release of our analytics, you'll be able to see that. So I don't think we're going to talk about the second version of the analytics in this webinar, but that should be out hopefully next week. So you will have access to that data on your own when we release the upgraded analytics. And I should also add that we don't, obviously you guys have been with us for a while, you know we don't upcharge for anything. We don't upsell. We just want to make this better, and a lot of it is, and that's added to our lists.
All right, I think we're having a little bit of issue with the audio popping in and out. I think we have it fixed. All right, awesome. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So we are going to go ahead and hop into content sources, and Tarek's going to show us a little bit more on that.
Yes, so let's jump back over here. So if you jump into this tab, and maybe you have seen this, maybe you haven't seen this. So when we initially began, Cerkl basically was your source of creating content. So you would go in, and for those that have been around for a while, you would say, I want to add content, a story or an update, a need, or an event. And the problem with that, and that's great, you know, for a lot of organizations, they love that feature. But for other organizations, hey, we're already producing content on our blog, we're already producing content on YouTube, Vimeo, our website, WordPress, great. Can't Cerkl just read that in? And the answer is yes. And so the way that works is that if you are producing content in another channel, so let's say you're posting blog posts, you're posting to your website, you're posting to social media, YouTube, whatever, then you can tell Cerkl, I want you to listen to that channel. So I don't want to have to recreate or repopulate all this content that I've already created on these channels and put it into Cerkl separately. So if you haven't used content sources, this is a great way for really you to save time. You would just populate the feed URL, which is going to be an RSS or Atom feed. So if you're using WordPress, for example, for the most part, it's going to be your website /feed. And so you would just paste in that URL, and you can paste that URL in. We'll check it to make sure it's a valid feed, and you can have that content either just be associated with your organization, or you could have it associated with a specific person. So this is really handy where an organization has multiple channels, and maybe one channel is being populated by a specific person. So instead of, for example, Xavier, they have professors, faculty that have their own blogs. And so what they can do is they can attach that blog to a specific person. So every time we find content from that blog, we automatically associate it with that person. For the most part, what will happen is you just drop in a feed, you associate it with your organization, and then you can choose, do you want to moderate the source? So what that means is when we find new content posted to your blog, YouTube, whatever, do you want to check it before it's made available to your audience? So for the most part, if it's already being posted to your blog, your website, you can turn this off. If it's coming from a different source, maybe an outside source. So a lot of our organizations use this to bolster their content. So we've heard a lot of people say, I'm not sure we produce enough content. And so what they can do is they can bring in content from other sources. GCVA, so the Greater Cincinnati Venture Association, Bad Girl Ventures, they do this where they will have their Cerkl listen to external blogs looking for good content. And so they moderate it. Whenever we find new content, they say, yes, I want my audience to see it, or no, I'm going to delete that. And so that's what that option does. If you want to be able to check it before it's available to your audience, you would just turn that on. Does that help?
Definitely. Appreciate that. So let's go ahead and hop into audience segmentation and how that works.
Sure. So this becomes really handy where you might have specific content that goes to one or more groups or classifications of your audience. So a lot of your content is going to go to everybody, and that's fine. And that's true or not true based on what you're trying to do. So I'll take the University of Dayton, for example. So they have segments set up for every graduating year back to 1942. They have segments set up for alumni chapters all over the country. They have segments set up based on geography. They have segments set up based on whether you're a parent, a student, an alum. And so what that allows them to do is they can be very, very specific in targeting content. So we have some sample segments set up. So these are just different segments for testing. So now when I go to create content, so if I were to add a piece of content, because I have segments set up, I can now target who is going to get that. So for example, let's say we were having, and this is an actual scenario, where University of Dayton is having an alumni get together in Chicago at a Cubs game. So what they would do is that they would post, we're having this event and it's in Chicago, here's the date, and Cerkl automatically determined that this has to do with the Cubs and baseball. Great. And they can then target that to people in Chicago. So once they've done that, they can also choose, is this content exclusively for people in that segment? So if I turn this on, only people in that segment will see this piece of content. If I turn that off, this will be higher priority content for people in that segment, but it's not exclusive to them. And if you think about it, how most organizations communicate today is it's really an all or nothing situation. So they would target this piece of content to just people in Chicago or just in that alumni chapter. And that doesn't really make sense. So I live in Cincinnati. I like the Cubs. I like baseball. Wouldn't this be a great opportunity for me to go to Chicago for a weekend? How would I have ever known that that was an opportunity for me? So now this gives them more options when it comes to getting the right content to the right people. So you can use segmentation like you traditionally would, where it's just to you, or you can just use it to have Cerkl help prioritize who should see this. So segmentation, again, is pretty easy to use. You would set up your segments. So you would go to settings, set them up. They can be called anything. So I will create one here. So I've just created a new segment. Now if I go into my audience, I can start applying people to that segment. So now I have one person in the segment that I just created. So she's a Cerkl owner, and she's part of this new segment that we just created. It's really that simple. So that's how you would manage segments and manage people in and out of segments, and how you can target content to people within those segments.
Awesome. I think that's a feature that a lot of people have had a couple questions about, so it's great that we were able to go over that. So next, let's go over one of my favorite new features, the link sharing.
Okay, so prior to, I guess, maybe a month ago, and I think it was Rachel, who might be on this webinar.
Yes, I think it is.
Might have made this recommendation, which is, hey, I like having a content source, and I like being able to plug in content from other sources, but it can be overwhelming. It can be too much content. What happens if I just see a story that I think would be interesting to my audience? Can I just add a link to that? So you can. So you can just go into add content, click on the link option, and then you just paste in the link. So let me see if I can find one here. So if I go to pretty much any blog site, I'm just going to pull up any. I refused to pull up the Pokemon article. I'm not going to do that. So
you haven't downloaded that yet?
I'm not going to download that. Let's see. So I want this URL, and I'm going to paste it in here. All right. Where is? I don't know if I copied that right. You copy and paste. I'm not a Mac person. Is that good? Mm-hmm. So it's going to go out, it's going to check that article, and it's going to pull it in automatically. So this just becomes additional content that now can be made available to your audience without you having to really do anything. So this is an interesting story. I think my audience would like this. Just drop in the link, and you can, again, do all the same things that you're doing. You can target that piece of content by topic. So people that are interested in these things, I would want you to see that. By segment, you can do all of that, except it really helps address this issue of, hey, I don't really produce a lot of content, but I know all of you out there have seen interesting stories on other sites that you're thinking, wow, my audience would really like seeing that, or a large percentage of my audience would really like seeing that. So this is just an easy way for you, when you run across interesting content, to make it available to your audience. Really just a copy and paste.
Perfect. All right, so now let's jump into something that I had never been good at, but using Cerkls analytics, I really started to understand data and being able to connect it with the relevant content. So let's jump into that.
Okay, Maddie, let's jump into that. So if you go back to, really everything starts here, but if you go to your organization name and you jump down to analytics, and again, this is getting a major grade. Hopefully this will be out next week, but let's walk you through what we have today. So the first thing that you would see is this is kind of your engagement score. All of this is, I know you guys are thinking, wait, why are you telling us this? It's all changing next week. But the concepts are going to stay the same. So the engagement score and how we do that, the math behind it, the algorithms, the data that we look at, that is all getting upgraded. And so you're going to see things now on a 0 to 100 scale. Right now you can go over 100. It's a little bit hard to keep up with. But the basic concept of, I want to see how our organization is engaging over time. That will still be there. To be able to jump into your content and see what's the most popular, these engagement scores will change based on our new algorithm. Who's engaged, who's not engaged, all of that's really interesting to see. And then of course, kind of traditional engagement metrics, your open rate and your click-through rate. So this is, again, really interesting, but we're going to be adding so much more content to this. For example, the ability to see, where are people opening our content? Where are people clicking? Kind of from a geography perspective, to be able to see what's the most popular day and time that people want our content. So that's really interesting to know. So if you were to do another mailing, so I have a dedicated email that I want to send out, when should I be doing that? Well, the largest percentage of our audience is Thursdays at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's really insightful information to know. So you're going to be seeing a lot more information, hopefully come next week. But let me just continue walking you through what we have today. So this gives you, just at a high level, based on what types of content are you posting, mostly updates, needs, or events. And this becomes really interesting here. This section's, hopefully you can all see this, it's called Top Topics. And this is the number of people that have opted in to each one of the topics. And so you would notice one of the options that we give them, where we started this entire webinar, is community engagement. And then we added technology as one of our topics because we saw that. Newsletters, marketing, communication, and then education is not one that we offer as one of our topics that we're going to be talking about, but it looks like a significant portion of our audience is interested in education. And that makes sense because we have done so much work with higher education and K through 12. So all of that makes sense. And then on this side, you see content opportunities. Now this becomes really, really cool. You're going to get a lot more of this hopefully next week, where you can see what are the top areas of interest of our audience that we haven't talked about in 30 days or more. So if you are looking to be prompted with content ideas, this is a great place to check in. So for us, it looks like people want education. We haven't talked about that in a while. People want entrepreneurship, social media. Apparently, we have a lot of people that like athletics. I'm not sure why we would be talking about that, but it's interesting to get a better insight of who your audience is and what they're looking for. So kind of nice would be to double dip or triple dip and say, what if we wrote a story that touches education, social media, and entrepreneurship? I just immediately checked off 3 big boxes for our audience in terms of that's what they want, and now we know what to give them. So if I keep scrolling down, you can see our posts over time. You can see what's most popular, how it's reaching people. So you have access to all of this data. It can be really powerful. And this is updated today daily. Eventually, it will be updated in real time. And then you can see, based on who can create content within your team, you can choose to allow people, your audience, to follow specific people within your organization. You can choose to turn that on or off. For us, we have it turned on. And Sarah apparently is the most popular person at Cerkl by 2 people. So I would expect no less. So that gives you some insights into your content. Then you can go deeper into your audience. So you can see who's the most engaged, who's the least engaged, breakdown by gender. And then how are they engaging? What are they interested in? You can sort all of this information, who has the highest open rate, who has the highest share rate, click rate. All of that is sortable, which I think gives you pretty interesting insights into your audience. And then the last piece is your traditional email metrics. What's our delivery percentage? So this is how many we've sent minus how many have bounced.
So we have a question on this actually. Someone had asked if they have a little over 1,000 email addresses in audience members, how do they have an open rate or opens of 16,000? So where does that come from, and how do you explain that?
I'm not following the question.
So if they have a little over 1,000 subscribers, how do they have 16,000 opens?
So let's see. So we have, I think this is part of, so some of you might be seeing this because we're transitioning to Analytics 2.0. So some of it we're working on really as we speak in terms of the back-end data. And I think a lot of this will make sense when you see the new version. So in the past, what we've done is we've been looking at each individual story, which is obviously, we know we sent you an email, but we weren't tracking how many stories did we send Maddie in that email. Was it 5 stories, 9 stories? So today, kind of with the new release, we are now tracking additional information that we sent Maddie 37 emails. And in each email, here's the stories that she received. Here's what she did with each of those stories, what she clicked on, what she didn't click on. So all of that, I think, will become obvious when we release the new version, hopefully next week. So you might be seeing some crazy data right now. That would be why.
Okay, awesome. Well, now that we've gone through all the analytics, let's go through the bonus feature, the email campaigns. I know that was...
Wait, there's a bonus feature?
There is.
People get a free set of knives if they hang on to the end?
They should, if they're staying on.
I might need a free set of knives. All right, so real quick before we jump into that, I want to show you one other thing. So you're actually going to get 2 bonus features. So audience, which we just touched on, this is kind of nice to have this, all of this, I think starting next week, will be integrated into one place. You won't have to bounce around in terms of this data should all be in our analytics. You're right. If that's what you're thinking, then you are correct, and that's what will happen. But the nice thing is, and I'm not sure a lot of people use this, I just touched on it when I was talking about segmentation, but this is where you have access to all of your audience and their interests. So to be able to do things like, I want to search for people that are interested in education. So who are all these people? We have 107 people that have said, I'm interested in education. So if you were to do something specific regarding education, maybe we were going to do a webinar just for teachers. Guess who we want to invite first? Now we have access to that information. So this is where you really start to see kind of the power of personalization and learning about someone's interests versus, well, this is our mailing list, it's name and email address. I really don't know what they like or who they are or what their current interests are. So I think this is important to point out, just to know that it's there. Other thing while we're here is that you can go in, and it's important to clean these up so you can see what emails are bouncing. So a lot of times they've just given you bad, mistyped email address. So you can just go ahead and fix that and hit update, and then it will send to their new email address. Okay.
Awesome.
It is awesome.
It is.
We're on the same page. So let's talk about email campaigns. So this feature has been kind of the last big hurdle for a lot of people that are on a Constant Contact or a MailChimp, which they will see Cerkl and they will say, hey, we love the fact that it does all of this. It creates a personalized newsletter for every member of our audience based on their interests. It saves me time. Love that. Love the additional insights. But there are times that I need to send a dedicated email, whether it's an event reminder, could be a solicitation. I need them to breaking news where I need you to see just this. So you can now do that. So you can go in and create a campaign. So you just give it a name. This might be webinar event reminder. Great. What's the subject line you want to send to your people? Do you want to send it to everyone or one or more segments of your audience? When do you want to send it? What time? And then you can literally drag and drop, lay out your email any way you want. So you can go in and customize this. I don't want this section. I don't want this section. And maybe I want to add a header with our cover photo. Drag that piece up here. Change the image, you style it, you lay it out like you're used to. We get that people still need this functionality. So for us, we looked at that and we said, we really are not huge fans of one-to-many emails, but we know that sometimes you just have to do it. And we don't want you to have to hang on to a MailChimp or a Constant Contact just for that little piece of functionality. So we have built that in for you, and we'd love your feedback on it. So we've been using it ourselves, might have gotten an email from us. So we'd love your feedback. How can we make it better? And that's not just true of this, that's true of everything that we do.
Awesome. And it does show analytics on the back end for the email campaign, correct?
Yes. So you can go in and see what's scheduled. We don't have anything scheduled. I can see, now this is just for dedicated emails. So we sent a dedicated email to 62 Cerkl owners. 87, so it was opened 87 times. So people opened it more than once. 38 unique opens. So we can see all of that data here, and that just keeps tracking over time. So we keep your personalized email and your dedicated email analytics separate.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I think it's now time to open everything up for live Q&A. I'm sure you guys have a couple more questions, and while we have Tarek here, he can take you through all of the fun stuff. So I think, let's see if we have any questions coming in. Let's see. All right. How about what if you want to
So we get this question all the time. So one of the questions that we get is, what happens if we don't, if they don't change their defaults? So let's just go back to the settings that we started with in the beginning. We didn't talk about this, but this is where you would set those defaults. So things like, hey, I want this by default to go out every 2 weeks, Wednesdays at 8 o'clock at night. That's when we send our emails if they don't change that. This minimum content piece, people don't realize that that's a feature where you can say, we don't want anything to go out to anyone unless we have at least 2 pieces of content. So for a lot of people that are worried about, I don't think we generate enough content, you can now put in controls to make sure it's not just sending out one story at a time. So that's in there. And a lot of the things that we've been adding have been based on user feedback. The added a link came from Rachel. We have some new features that are coming in thanks to University of Dayton. And then we have some features coming in thanks to TriHealth, who we're getting ready to work with.
Awesome. So we have a couple other questions. So can I pick more than 20 topics, and is there a drop-down menu?
So the default right now is 20 topics. If you actually need more, you can just contact us and we can help you with that. In fact, you can go one level deeper. So we don't make this publicly available. University of Dayton has done things like you can choose business, and then if you choose business, on the next screen it will say, oh, is it economics, finance, marketing, communication? So you can go one level down. After kind of your main level topics, you can add subtopics.
Okay. And can you go over what editor, approver, moderator, and moderatee mean?
No.
Please.
Okay. All right. So yes, basically when you go into your team members, you can assign them different levels of permission. So each circle has to have at least one owner. You can have multiple owners, and basically they have the right to go in, add team members. They can change all of this information that you see on the left side. So owners have access to all of this information. So you really do kind of want to be careful who you make an owner. Team members then have access to create content, to see all the analytics, search your audience. That's what a team member can do. Editors can go in and they might see a piece of content, and maybe Maddie, actually it would probably be the other way around. I probably created the content and Maddie's fixing it because I've made so many mistakes. So when she sees something that I've screwed up, she can go in and edit that. So she would have the rights to be able to do that. You have an ad approver. So if you go in and your Cerkl wants sponsorship, you can choose to turn that on. That basically makes them part of the BuzzGlue network, which means outside companies can choose to sponsor your Cerkl. Again, you have to approve that. So if it comes in and La Rosa's wants to sponsor your Cerkl, you get to see the ad, you can say yes or no. And once you say yes, then it starts running right away. You start generating revenue right away. So ad approvers are then alerted, hey, you've got a new ad, take a look at it. So you can go in and assign anyone this level of permission. And if you are moderating content, so I think talked about this at the beginning of this webinar, where when I add additional content sources or so in this case, Claire, if she were to create a story, the moderator would be me in this case, would be alerted, hey, Claire has created a story. You need to check this before it hits your audience. So that's the difference between a moderatee and a moderator. I think that covers all the basic roles and functions, and it's kind of nice to know what each of those do.
Yeah, and I think we have one last question. We do want to be respectful of everyone's time, but please don't forget to ping us offline if you have any further questions, and we will also be sending over the recording of the webinar from this afternoon. So one last question, how can they reach us if they have a question in the moment?
So a question about the site or something that they're struggling with.
Yes.
So probably the easiest way is just to send an email to support@cerkl.com. And so that'll get routed to whoever it needs to get routed to. That's probably the fastest way to get a hold of us. But most of these people on this list have our personal email addresses. So don't hesitate to send us personal emails or call. So it's not like we're Mark Zuckerberg or anything. You can just call us. It's kind of different. If you have any ideas, things that we could do to make your life easier, we love hearing that. If there's something that's not working the way you thought it should work, we love hearing that too. So it really is driven based on your feedback. How can we make your life easier is a big underlying premise of how we work and how we prioritize what we work on.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate all of you sticking with us, as we've been able to grow and as we continue to grow. We love having you guys as part of our Cerkl family, and we look forward to continuing the conversation with you. Have a great day, guys.